Hey Baker Art friends, it's Mrs. Herbay. I wanted to tell you something really exciting that takes place in the month of December, which is right around the corner. It's called the Audubon Christmas Bird Count, and it's a citizen-run science project where on Christmas Day or around that time, residents and citizens around the world go out and they count the birds in the area where they live, and they document their findings and they turn it into an organization called the Audubon Society. And you might say, well, why do people do this? And the reason they do it is that then they are able to see how climate change is affecting the bird population, maybe what species of birds there aren't quite as many and they're in trouble, and maybe what areas need some conservation help. So it's a really cool thing, and I thought that it might be something that we could even do this month as we are at school and at home. We could also be bird watching and keeping track of birds. While we are doing that, I thought it would be great if each grade level did a art project that focused on birds. And so what I've done is I put together this PowerPoint to show you guys um, some information about Pennsylvania's birds. I have here, this is just a poster that has some of the birds that can be found in Pennsylvania. You might recognize some of them, like the blue jay or the cardinal or the sparrows or the mourning doves or the crows. Might even have a hawk in your yard. Some of these, though, you may not be familiar with, but they are also birds that live in Pennsylvania. And so what we're going to do is we are going to look at a number of the birds that are on this poster. And what I've done is I have included in this PowerPoint photos of the birds. And what we are going to do is we are going to study the photos of the birds and we are going to see what we observe. And the first things that we want to think about when we're looking at a bird picture or at a real bird, and when we think about drawing a bird, we want to think about, well, what is the body shape? And that's the easiest way to begin to start to draw the bird, is to think about the shape of the body. We also want to think about the shape of the head. The wings also have, if you simplify it, a particular shape. The tails do as well as most of the birds that we are going to be looking at, as well as the beak shape. But in addition to having a body, a head, wings, a tail, and a beak, birds also have feathers. And there are a number of ways that we can, there's a number of ways we can use different lines to create the look of feathers and texture on our birds, because birds have larger feathers, but they also have small feathers. And so we would use different lines depending on what type of feathers we want to show on our bird. Birds also have feet, which are sort of very delicate, and they sort of have some claws on the end that allow birds to grip onto branches. And then a lot of birds have many other markings or colors that make them special and that help us to recognize what they are. So without further ado, we are going to take a look at some of these birds. This is called a black-capped chickadee. And one of the things we notice about this bird is that it does look like it has a black cap on the top of its head. Some other things I might want you guys to notice are, if you notice these feathers, the feathers on the wing are a lot larger, and then the bird, it's almost like it has a lot of these little downy type feathers. And if we were drawing this, we would just use sort of just lines to note that. And then here we might draw the actual little feather shapes here. We're going to think about this bird as far as its body shape, head shape, and beak shape. And the body shape is almost sort of like a boat or sort of a half of a circle. And the head is always usually a circle, and then the beak is a triangle. The head, when you overlap the head onto the body shape, then you get more of an overall shape of the bird. This is also the same bird, but I was using lines to kind of show you how the bird is sort of like this. You could also do it like this, where it's almost sort of like, I don't know, kind of like a raindrop shape. And then the wing is sort of shaped like an upside down, or it's actually a sideways sort of raindrop or teardrop shape. And then here is the beak. So that's another way that you can think about it. The next birds that I'm going to show you have similar body shapes to the chickadee that I just showed you. This is an American goldfinch. And then I also went ahead and did the lines here. Again, it has a similar, where it's sort of the half circle or half oval with an overlapping circle for the head. And then we have our sort of big long teardrop shape for the wing, and then the triangle for the nose. Some other birds that have these similar shapes are, this is called a song sparrow. You may have seen these in your yard. And then what I did here is I kind of drew for you the lines of the larger feathers, so you could kind of see, if you were drawing this bird, this would be sort of the detail that you would add after you drew the body shape and the tail shape and the head shape and the beak all together. And then I sort of outlined this first foot that you can kind of see here as well. A Carolina wren also has a similar body shape and can be found in Pennsylvania. And I also went ahead and then outlined some of the wren's larger feathers here for you guys to see. This is called a white-throated sparrow, and you can guess why, because kind of right here, kind of where its throat would be, is this white tuft of feathers. And the sparrow also has sort of a black and white, there's a white stripe with some black and white and yellow around its eyes, which is kind of interesting. And then this is called a house sparrow. I know I've seen a lot of these in my neighbor. My neighbor sort of has a vent in the side of their house, and I've seen these sparrows going in and out of that vent. They've made a nest there. This is called a dark-eyed junco. It also has a similar body shape to the other birds that we were talking about. This is an eastern bluebird, which is really pretty. It has the oranges and the bright blue. This is called a white-breasted nuthatch. It also has a similar body shape to the other birds, but if you notice, its beak is a lot longer and thinner than some of the other birds that we were initially looking at. This is called a tufted tit mouse, and it has a little tuft on the top of its head, whereas the other birds we had been looking at, the head was more round. So what you might do is you would add a triangle on top of the circle shape for the head when you're drawing it. Here's just another version of a tufted titmouse. Now, the next set of birds that we're going to get into, their bodies aren't quite as short and round. They're a little bit longer. This is a robin, and I'm sure you've all seen robins in your yard. They're really prevalent in the spring, and we can see them building their nests. And we can also sometimes see when their babies hatch. This is a robin, and then what I did was, for the robin, I went ahead and showed you guys. So the body shape is a little bit longer and thinner but it's still sort of that, it's almost like the shape of if you were drawing a boat. And then here is the circle for the head, triangle for the beak, and then here is the same shape as the body, but smaller for to be the wing shape of the wing. And then the tail is sort of this, it's narrow at the top and wider at the bottom, with two diagonal lines on either side there. So that is the shapes for the robin. And the next number of birds will have similar shapes to the robin. This is the blue jay, which I know you've probably seen in your yard. And this is a cardinal. This particular cardinal, his body is really thin, but it would still be that same boat shape with the circle head attached. And same thing, here's like the teardrop shape for the wing. The wing is kind of starts right up in here, although we can't really see it, but that's kind of like the wing shape right there. And then here's our tail. This is a different version, or a different picture, or a different view of a cardinal. This cardinal is a little bit beefier than the other cardinal. And this is a female cardinal. They are different colors. They have a different color than the male cardinals. They're like a lightish brown with a little bit of red or orange on them. This is called a house finch. And then this is a purple finch. So it's a little bit darker, sort of a reddish violet color. And that is the end. So what I'd like you to do is take some time this week and look at the birds and pick some of your favorites and practice drawing them using shapes, and then also practice drawing them using lines.